The main difference is just the market maturity. I mean, Houston, we're a much more mature market. We have a lot more volume. And so for Houston is that the trust comes in is can we operate under pressure because we have a lot more a lot more pressure because of our scale. And so can we show up consistently to the customer and deliver an experience where the back end processes don't affect them at all? Are we consistent? Can we do that with the volume that we have?
And it's becoming that standardized culture. We got to keep things uniquely Austin, and Austin is Austin, and Houston is Houston, and we can't make them be different than what they are. They're two different markets, but they're one brand, and I think that's the big takeaway for everybody here. How you doing, everybody? This is Tony Patino, and this is our newest episode of Trust Talks. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Houston and Austin, our two different markets. So we've got Melissa Brown, our senior vice president, with us, as well as Vic Fredlund, our general manager in Austin, and Lucy Martinez, who is our division manager for business operations. Welcome everybody to the show. So excited to have you guys on and look forward to really, really kind of unpacking a few things today about the two markets and one standard. So Melissa, if you want to just do a real high level intro, but if there's anything you want to say to the team or what you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, well, on a day-to-day, it's always different, and sometimes I don't know what to expect. But I've been here for 2 years. Just had my 2-year anniversary. When I joined Abacus, I was the CFO or VP of Finance, and over the last 2 years, that role has grown pretty significantly. I'm taking on a lot more of the business operations side with retail, built out our BSI team, and work closely with Austin, also work with our GM of facilities and fleet. So warehouse, facilities, fleet operations here.
It's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of stuff you got going on. So never a dull moment, I imagine, right?
Never. No.
All right, Vic, tell us a little bit about your background with Abacus.
Yes, sir. So I've been here just under 5.5 years. Day one that we opened our doors in Austin, I came in as the air conditioning manager, which at the time was everything air conditioning, install, sales, service, fleet, warehouse, and has over the last 5.5 years slowly peeled off those. We've grown, assigned, brought in install manager, service manager, warehouse became its own entity. So, and then about 7 months ago, moved into the general manager role and now oversee the operations of all three trades, as well as the fleet, warehouse, and interact with marketing as well.
Man, that's a lot of growth in a very short period of time. Lots of stuff happening in Austin to go from zero to where you're at, man. That's quite an accomplishment, and moving into the general manager seat, definitely a big move forward for you. All right, Miss Lucy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been with Abacus right around the same time that Vic has been, so about a year and several months. And when I first came on, I was the office coordinator, and then shortly, once we started hiring more people, I moved into the office manager role, and then recently moved into the business operations manager. And of course, I oversee all the front office and warehouse and fleet. So it's been quite a growth in the past 5 years that we've been here.
Yes, it has, and we're going to talk a little bit about that growth here later on in the session today. So, Melissa, you're one of the only people in the company with a true day-to-day view of both Houston and Austin on the finance operations side. So, when you move between the two, what's the first thing you notice about how trust really shows up differently?
I think the main difference is just the market maturity. I mean, Houston, we're a much more mature market. We have a lot more volume. And so for Houston is the trust comes in and can we operate under pressure because we have a lot more pressure because of our scale. And so can we show up consistently to the customer and deliver an experience where the back end processes don't affect them at all? Are we consistent? Can we do that with the volume that we have? I think in Austin, because they are a newer market, it's still very much, I think it's relationship building. How do we look when we show up at customers' homes? How do we present ourselves? Do we deliver? Are we able to do what we say that we're going to do? So I think for Houston, it's a lot of scalability, volume. I think in Austin, it's still very much relationship driven.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think early on, I think we wanted to make things as close as possible, but different. And the market maturity is a huge deal because I mean the things that Houston has gone through over the last 18 years at the time when we opened up Austin. It's a long time. It's a lot of maturity. It's a lot of stumbling and hitting your head on things. And some of those areas we've been able to assist with Austin's growth and get them up to speed fast. But yeah, definitely a huge opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think we've made a lot of momentum too. I think, at one point Austin was kind of its own organization with its own flavor, and we've been working hard at standardizing things across both markets, at least to make everybody's lives easier on the shared services side, having the same processes in place. I think it helps our technicians and managers kind of cross collaborate a little bit more when we're doing things more of an Abacus way versus as opposed to a Houston versus Austin way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, I mean, I know the people on this in this meeting here know what the shared services are, but I don't know if everyone across both markets understands. Okay, what exactly does Houston do, and we shouldn't say, what exactly does the Houston office? What does that mean on a shared service standpoint? I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or just kind of give everybody some information on what exactly falls under shared services.
Yeah, just kind of our structural support from accounting and finance and payroll teams, IT, our BSI team, our call center, our HR department, just kind of the structural bones of Abacus are shared.
Right. All right. I'm going to move over to Vic. So Vic, I mean, you're one of the original Austin hires. Take me back. I mean, what did trust look like in year one, and when there was no track record yet? We were still trying to figure it.
So trust is internal and external, right? The original GM I had already known for a couple years, so there was a level of trust between him and I. One of the service techs I brought over, actually both the service techs I knew, so there was a level of trust between us as well. The plumbers I didn't know, the plumbing manager I didn't know, the plumbing manager didn't know the GM, so there was a lot of internal trust to be gained. And then obviously working with the Houston market and the organization from Houston, we didn't know anybody in that organization, and to be honest, nobody in the Houston organization knew us. We didn't do a transition of personnel from Houston to here, so there was no influx, there was no built-in trust from relationships. So it took time to get to know the cadence of how people interacted, both communication, what expectations were, how open we could be with our questions or even our concerns. So it took time. It was more just a time of exposure and kind of testing the waters.
And just to help everybody, because not everybody went through the experience of what we did when we onboarded you guys and got everybody going. So this is coming, think back 2021, early 2021, spring of, you're talking January, February, and then we opened up the end of March of 2021. We're coming out of the heels of COVID, right? So we are just, most things had just reopened up, or we're in the process of reopening up. It was difficult to get technicians early on, right? I mean, it was very challenging. We're a brand new brand in a brand new city, and just to give everybody, like, we didn't start hiring people, I want to say, until 4 weeks before we went live. If that, I mean, it might have been even sooner than that. We went from 0 employees to 8 in like a matter of weeks, and then we still had to get people somewhat trained and going, and so it was a big lift.
Correct.
And you're absolutely right. Is trust, and you guys didn't know so there was a lot that had to go into that for both you and Lucy to drop what you were doing, jump on board with a company that you didn't know a whole lot about. I mean, because we didn't have a presence in Austin at all. So Lucy, can you tell me a little bit, like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about how much trust you had to have in the company and when you first started?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that trust is earned, right? It's something that you have to earn over time. So coming into a company that was essentially starting fresh in a new location, it was a little, how do I say it? It was a little not worrisome, but it cautionary, right? It's like, is this something gonna make it through? How should I, would I trust people that are barely coming into a market that they're not, familiar with? And so I just kind of put my what is it? Here's the one. I put my faith into the company, right? And I think a lot of it, what helped out a lot is having that connection through our former CFO. He had him being with Houston Advocates for a while and kind of knowing the culture and being able to visibly show what the culture is, and so that helped me say, okay, if this person is willing to come to a completely different city, start, from level ground up, then I should put some trust into it, and then from there build from that. And so yeah, it was worrisome at the beginning, but as time went on, and Abacus proved to be a solid company to work for, and it just kept on building from there. So
Yeah, and that's a lot. I mean, because the brand, I mean, and it was a little unique relationship there because you're probably one of the few employees that didn't report directly to the general manager. You reported directly into to Brandon, and so you got to work. You got to see things from the back end side of the house, and that. But you're right. You worked probably closer with Brandon than any other person there in the market for a number of years, and so yeah, it definitely helped kind of shape what Abacus was really about. Was really, and then
exactly.
that translated. Do you feel like that translated over to everybody else within the office, within the staff? Like, okay, what Dwayne at the time and what he was talking about, but also what you're seeing and hearing from Brandon and Alan and everybody else, right?
Yeah, I think it's translated for the most part, again, because so many people were trying to approach this in a way where it was like a fresh start. Maybe they thought that they had a better idea of how to handle the market and everything. And so at the beginning, it was rough because you had certain leadership that wanted to do it the way they wanted to do it, and then you have, no, we need to do it the way Abacus does it, and so I feel like at the beginning it was challenging trying to get everybody under the same vision, right? But ultimately, it worked out, and 5 years later, we're still here. So yeah,
It's
I mean, it had its challenges, but I feel like that is what allowed us to grow to where we're at now. It wasn't perfect at the beginning, and maybe that's what helped us out still being here, and hiring the right people.
Yeah, it was different because it was. I chuckled earlier because I know that the growing pains, I'll call them the growing pains, early
Yeah.
on is there was a lot of, hey, we do it this way, or no, I think it's this way, and then, ultimately it's like, I don't know, we got to do it this way, like this is the Abacus standard and this is the way we want to do it. But I think those things really, you said it right, it shaped you guys for what you are today, because okay, well, we can't do that. We went down that road before, that doesn't necessarily work well. We end up building all these processes or things that, and it's just like we can't sustain that going forward. So, well, good. This kind of takes me to my next question, and I'm going to jump back to Melissa here. So, Melissa, where have you seen Houston and Austin try to run this same exact playbook and it just didn't work?
The first thing that came to my mind was retail. And I think that, we have a successful retail program in Houston with Home Depot and Lowe's. I don't think when we launched retail in Austin, there was the buy-in for it. And I wasn't part of that process at the time, but I think just the lack of buy-in and focus that we had in Austin with the leadership at the time, it caused us to kind of lose that relationship in Austin. So hopefully it's something we can rebuild in the future with Austin under Vic's leadership. But I think that's kind of one area that came to mind first.
Yeah, and I'll kind of chuckle again because I remember going through that with, and it just the buy-in has to start at the top, right? Meaning the if whether it's Vic or whoever's in the seat as the general manager isn't behind the program, whatever program, whether it's retail or VIP or whatever, you can look at and say, hey, if and that person isn't behind it, it's hard to replicate it and execute it in the field and have the same buy-in between the markets. And so I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It was probably again, hindsight's always 2020. Would coulda, woulda, shoulda. We probably should have parked retail a little bit until we got fully mature on the operation side. But I think as we're going forward, I think it's something we definitely want to look at in the future for us.
Yeah, it's a different animal for sure. I mean, even for us, it can be it's definitely challenging, and it's a smaller part of our business. So I can definitely see why, as a small business trying to take on something like Home Depot, it could be a challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Vic, I said, so you've now watched Austin go from a startup to year 5. I mean, heading towards profitability. What's the moment you'd point to where the market actually turned a corner in your eyes?
It's funny. The first 3 years, there was not the constraints of margin. It was basically, I hate to say it was an experiment, but it was here. Go into a new market. Here's your building. Here's your fleet. Here's your staff. Go. There were processes, but to your point, a couple of points that were made earlier, the first couple of evolutions of management were driven to maintain independence. So there was not a lot of collaboration on the processes. So, but all that said, we were able to hit those numbers because we didn't have the constraints. We were just going straight top line. When we started pulling the throttle back and going, okay, now we've shown we can hit top line. Now we need to start being more profitable, and we started drawing down marketing. We started drawing down on discounting, things like that. It timed out with some other issues we had in the market, and then of course coming around the year after that was when we went to the refrigerant transition, and that was another, that and tariffs, everything else. So there's a lot of challenges. So I would say right off the bat, when we went in and we said, okay, we're just going to go out and hit the ground running, compete with the big boys in town that nobody knew who we were able to do it. So we felt pretty good. I felt good on the HVAC side. I know plumbing did at the time about what we were able to accomplish. So we were already feeling successful. I would say currently with the transition and everything that has happened in the last 5 years, I would say honestly, May. Departmentally, I think plumbing started seeing some good transition back to success in February, March. Electrical, we're getting there. We're moving in the right direction. I feel really, really positive with electrical direction right now. And HVAC, honestly, I would say we started seeing a good amount of success at margin control in May. It's been that recent.
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure, right? I think I've seen it, when I look at Austin over 5 years, and I think you can almost like, hey, each year is a chapter in the book, right? We're
Pretty close.
building, and just like any other organization, and I think we've gone through a lot of some peaks and valleys, and the initial marching orders to provide some color for everybody. The initial marching orders when we opened Austin was, how fast can we get to $25 million, right? That the order from Wrench was, don't worry about, to Vic's point, don't worry so much about margin, don't worry about expenses yet. Like, let's just there was an unlimited marketing, but I say unlimited, there was some limits, but it was very high limits when it came to marketing. Spend what you got to do to get to 25 million, excuse me. Do you need more trucks? Sure, we'll get you 20 more trucks. And, before we knew it, we just had way more than we needed. And then, I would say probably as we got into like year 2.5 to 3, it started to be like, okay, do we really need, that many trucks? And we started, and Alan's always was like, hey, we still got to pay attention to margin. We're not measured on margin yet, but let's not like totally ignore it. So it wasn't a foreign concept to us or to the team, but it definitely got real probably after year 3. And we started having to go into year 4, and we're like, okay, now we got to scale back on here and scale back on this. And that's when things really not because now you became a real business, and you started, when I say that, is like, to me, business, unless you're making money, it's not a business yet. It's just a hobby. It's great. It's great on to say, hey, we got to 25 million, but now we want to get to say, hey, we're a 26, $27 million, moving to 30. And then we've got positive EBITDA flow to this, right? And so that's our next journey and our next thing. And it's funny because you've kind of seen it at all the different phases, as Lucy, as Melissa, over the last couple of years, and I've had a seat on it in different stages, and I could see, hey, we've had to rebuild this thing a couple of different times through the years. And I think, to your point, in 2026, you really started to see some traction, and you're starting to really, really start seeing some. I mean, it's one of those things, momentum. I always talk about it, and I was talking to you guys. It's momentum's one of those things you don't really see right away. It's just daily wins, a little win here, a little win here, and the next thing you know, okay, man, we won a week, we won 2 weeks, we won a month, and it's good to see, wrapping up here in June, what looks to be a very successful month for the Austin team overall. So, Lucy, so you've been there 5 years. You've been the right-hand person to just about every general manager that's been there. Very similar. I mean, you've seen you've seen it all, good, bad, ugly, and different. And you could probably sit down and talk stories for days.
But she won't.
No,
I
she
don't
won't.
remember half of it. I'm just kidding.
No.
So, what makes you that trusted person to just like anybody that, especially the general manager? I mean, you're Vic's pretty much his right-hand person there. What are the requirements on a daily basis? Because I've been in the office there. People come to your office. You're in your office is in the middle of the building. So I see people in and out of your office all day long, technicians, staff, managers. So, I don't know, what makes you that, what does the role require, and why do you feel like people trust you so much?
Well, I treat everybody as if they're the top person in the company. So it could be somebody in the warehouse, it could be a technician, you, Vic, Melissa. Anytime anybody needs anything, I make you feel like they're my priority without what is it? Sacrificing the rest of my work. It's just something that I've always type of person that I've always been. If somebody needs something fast, I'm gonna get it for them. I'm gonna get them the answer. If I don't have the answer, I'm gonna look for it. And I think a lot I do that because I kind of want that person who, if I go look for an answer, if I need somebody's help, I'm not saying that they should drop everything and help me, but I also I'm the type of person that likes fast results too. So if I feel like if I treat this person this way, they will probably return the favor and do it this way without really demanding it. So I think first of all, since I've been here for 5 years, I just have so much advocate knowledge that it's easy for somebody to come to my office and ask me the questions that they need and then get the answers. And I I don't know how this is gonna sound, but I like being the person that people turn to. I like being the person that people depend on. And so if I don't know the answer to the question, I will go look for it. So I think I've kind of built that reputation within the company is, if you need anything done and you need help, you can go to Lucy and they'll get it done. And so as far as being Vic's right hand woman, I believe that I whoever is running the company, the way I like to view it is I want to make their job easier. If that means that they need me to go get lunch for everybody, I'll do that. If they need me to go run a report, I'll do that. If they need me to go talk to somebody, I'll do that. It's just something that's kind of embedded in me of wanting to make sure that the business runs smoothly. I just have this feeling inside of myself of like wanting to make sure that every day is successful, even if it's just the littlest thing. When it comes to meetings or somebody being in the break room and me saying good morning to them. It's just something that's kind of embedded in me, and so I don't know, maybe people feel that positive attitude coming out of me or what. So I feel like I've strayed away from the question, but as far as supporting Vic, I feel like that's part of my role, not because it's forced upon me, but I feel like it's something that I initially want it to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was going to add was, people trust you, Lucy, just because you don't need a title, you don't need you have a servant's heart, right? You believe in helping people and helping as many people as you possibly can get what they need, whether it's a technician coming in for a new hat or a question on their iPad or how to do this or how to do that, and so a manager trying to figure out how to run how to do inventory correctly or whatever. So you got a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you're not shy to share that and knowledge. And so I think people, that's welcoming to people, especially new people that are coming to the organization. And but I think that goes into being the person that people can rely on, right? And people can rely on you, and that's why every GM and every leader has always like, oh well, let me ask Lucy to help me with this, because they know and we can rely on you. And I don't want to speak for Vic. I'm just my observations over the years and seeing what I've seen between all the different people. You're that person in the organization there. So fantastic. Okay, so let's move over here. So to Melissa. So from the finance seat, what does a trust problem actually look like on a P&L or in an audit before anyone in the room says the word trust out loud?
What does trust look like? I think it looks like just consistency and telling a logical story, right? Like trust, you start to question things when things look unusual. And so, if close rates are going down or discounting is going up or, refunds are going up or we've got erosion of gross margin, then, those are the kind of things that you look into. And when you can explain those things, you have trust because it's explainable. Sometimes if there's erosions that can't be explained, then you've got to dig a little deeper. I think having some, just as being a CPA, one of the things I was always taught was professional skepticism. And so I've just, my whole career, I've kind of dug into, hundreds of different companies' financials and, always looking with professional skepticism to see if things look well. And so I think the trust comes in when you have explanations, things look consistent, things are logical. And if things are off, being able to explain that.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing and the being able to your diligence on looking into things and making sure, hey, this doesn't necessarily something doesn't pass the sniff test here. The numbers look too good, or they're really not that bad. It goes both ways, but I think it's yeah, I'm a big believer in data and numbers, but it doesn't tell you all the story. It just kind of gives you the early indicators, or it gives you somewhere to look into. Yeah, that doesn't look right. Austin's better than this. something must be off with their, now let's go unpack what it could be. It could be inventory, could be account, could be a billing issues. And then just so we can, because I think the whole goal operationally and within the organization is just consistency. Can we consistently deliver A, B, and C every month? And from a finance seat, I know that's super important. We want to be able to, we don't want these big swings up and down on our finance and our, business operations and finance. And so super.
Yeah, and just yeah. And
Go,
like if there are swings, having, trusting that, the people who are in charge of that part of the P&L, for instance, have the knowledge or the background to come up and say, well, we had this happen this month. Because otherwise, we had the issue last year with HVAC discounting going up, and from just looking at the numbers, we could question every month what's going on. And then after seeing a trend, it's like, okay, Tony, I came to you and I was like, Tony, we had to have increased prices 2 months ago because, something is going on. But, the people that were in charge of that weren't speaking up when we were asking about why is discounting going up so high. So, I think it's just like consistency and looking at the patterns and just being able to trust that our people will provide explanations if it's not obvious. A lot of times it's obvious. It's like, oh, we got double billed this month for something, or we had a lot of overtime because we were doing more recalls or something of that nature. But
yeah.
the numbers always tell a story.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, just in over the not necessarily here in Abacus, but I've seen in the past with other operations and other operators, and they maybe I don't want to have to explain this to our CFO or this or that, and let me hide this and and it just never, it's just not good business, it's not good operational standards, it's just not, if you're doing things the right way and everything's explainable, right? If there's something going on, it should all tie up and it should all be able to say, hey, yeah, we did A, B, and C. We chased sales, so we discounted more. That's why, whatever our margin hit. So it's just understanding that and everybody trusting each other to be, honest. And that's just, hey, that's just a core value of ours. And I think that's when people start to manipulate data or manipulate systems or something because they're trying to hide something. That's also a telltale sign of like, there's probably more that they're hiding. There's probably other stuff that they're doing or not doing that you just don't know about yet. So but anyway, off track there. But
Yeah. Our accounting team is really good. One of the things that Abacus is really, really good at is reconciling the balance sheet. Because, if your balance sheet is reconciled and you know what's going on in it, you can have, really a 95% level of confidence in the P&L. And, to a business, the P&L is everything, right? Like it's what tells us how we're operating. And so I have to give kudos to our accounting team for the phenomenal job that they do. We don't, since I've been here, and I don't know how long, it may be forever, we've never had an audit adjustment. So that just speaks volumes to their level of detail that goes into that so that we can actually trust the numbers that we're reporting. So if those numbers do signal something, then we know we need to dig in. It's not because of an accounting error.
absolutely, absolutely. So Vic, question for you here. So you stepped into the GM seat here, probably what, December-ish?
December. Yeah.
Yeah. So what actually changes when you go from I've seen it all here to I'm now responsible and accountable for all of it? So what actually changes there?
I mean, the obvious answer is your trade. I mean, I knew everything air conditioning. It's what I did. It's what I'd done for a while. And I knew everything pretty much about air conditioning within Abacus's confines. I had interactions with plumbing, interactions with electrical, both from cross leads and from supplemental work that needed to get done to support our trade or their trades. But the actual knowledge of operations in those trades was something that I was not privy to. I had no real reason to be. I had my own responsibilities. I'd made kind of a slow transition into it by taking a bit of a more of an operational role prior to that. So I'd already had some control and influence and oversight on warehouse and fleet before moving into the GM role officially. So that was already kind of an introductory to that aspect of it. But then I think the bigger part of it too was my world was Abacus. It was my interaction was with the former GMs. My interaction was with the other trade managers in the huddles, and it was with all the shared services managers that I would interact with when I would come down to Houston. I had very, very little interaction with Wrench. Wrench was not in my world. It didn't need to be. That was not part of what I needed to do day to day. So the introduction to the wrench aspect of meetings, of interactions, the email chains, the conversations that were happening at a strategic level, things like that were all much more of a, I wouldn't say a wake up call, but much more of an exposure to things, a look behind the curtain, so to speak.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there was. Yeah, I think that's best. Certain things were kind of, I don't want to say shielded from you, but kind of kept off of your plate,
Oh, for sure.
and then some things now that now you're included in everything, and it could be a little overwhelming. Number one, the number of emails and messages and everything else that comes at you all at the same time, and so I think we. But no, I got to give you kudos to the transition and being able to take that on and take on those added responsibilities. So that's appreciate it. So Lucy, I think I've got a question for you here. So again, you're often the one translating the vision, whether it's Vic's vision or my vision or whatever that vision is. And you sit on the leadership meetings, and so you're responsible for helping translate that vision into what the team actually does day to day. How do you do that without losing what makes the Austin location uniquely Austin?
Trusting the process, you know, and keeping to the values in the culture, and treating everybody with respect. I feel like as we grow, processes are going to change, right? And so, but that shouldn't change how we treat people, you know. So communication is a big thing. A lot of people don't like to be kept in the dark, especially when there's big changes coming along. So I, I think it's very important to let them know that these changes are coming up, and this isn't going to change how we treat our employees. It's just a better process of doing things now that we're getting, bigger. And so ultimately, it's that just keeping the values and the culture a priority when it comes to different levels of the business.
Yeah, and I think that's again because how the culture was at a $5 million or $8 million year one number, and then you guys got to 16 and it's 25. So each step is a little different, right? You got more people, you got new people coming and going. You're trying new things. So I think it's you kind of said, hey, keep things to the culture, and I think all what we're trying to tell everybody here is just always leaning back on our core values, our three
Well,
wins, our promises, right? Those things that are hanging up. And it was so when we built the new office, and even we had it in the old office too, but I think deliberately and intentionally I wanted to make sure when we built the new office out that it felt and looked as close to the Houston office as we could. I mean, I believe your office looks a little bit better, but I mean, so it's kind of
you and
you got
everybody else
probably
that
one
comes
of
here.
you probably got one of the coolest offices in all of Wrench Group for sure. I hear it every time, but
Yeah.
I think the training room was important for me personally to make sure that it felt like our training room, just at a smaller scale. But I didn't want anybody to say, "Oh, well, Austin's treated differently," because I used to hear that a lot. Oh, look at our training room and look at their training room, and so it was really important for us to keep that standard and that culture to make sure it looks the same and feels the same, and
Yeah.
we operate the
Keep the
same.
connection too, because I feel like when you get older, it's easier to lose connection with some of the employees, especially the technicians that are out there. They don't come to the office as often,
Mhm.
and so keeping the connection for us is having those monthly meetings, and of course having the events, the once maybe quarter events where we have them come in for lunch. But I feel like that's just as important as you said, keeping the connection, even if it's through meetings, keeping that the, the line of that the line together. So I agree with that.
So as we're getting close to wrapping up here today, and questions go by, I got a few more questions for you guys, kind of as a group, right? And so Melissa sees both markets from the finance and operations chair. Vic and Lucy have lived inside Austin for 5 years. From and Vic from the GM seat now, and Lucy on the operations side of it. Where do all three of your views of what's working actually agree? What do y'all collectively do y'all feel like, hey, this is the one thing that's working for us in both markets or specifically in Austin?
Go ahead, Melissa.
For me, it's communication.
Like, Vic, take it
I
away.
mean, I'll go. I'm just trying to be the gentleman here.
I,
We've
I
we've
think
we've gone a long way, Tony. I mean, you remember, and to some extent, I don't remember your level of interaction. I know Alan was still heavily involved at the very beginning, but the first couple years we were here, it was an active effort to maintain independence. So there was not a lot of shared processes. There's not a lot of you know best practices that were going back and forth. The communication has improved immensely. The ability to take what works in Houston with 23 years of practice and experience and apply it here to the greatest extent. Then there are going to be differences in the markets between, the ground that we're digging in here for plumbing or heat pumps here versus Houston. There's going to be some nuances, but the best practice and the level of communication that has improved has definitely increased the level of trust and the level of efficiency and success that we're having here. I think that's the biggest part. I mean, Lucy touched on it a while ago with the communication has been the biggest factor.
Yeah, I think having, going to Austin, it feels like you still have that kind of smaller company, almost family feel when you go there. I mean, the office is beautiful. When I go there for the all employee meetings, Lucy's serving the technicians breakfast, and it's nice to have that, but yet still be part of a larger organization. So you have the support. You have a lot more support behind you than what it looks like. A lot of the technicians may not see that, but you have the support on the price book side, on the call center side, on the administrative side. So I think having that, you kind of have the best of both worlds, I think. But I think, we've come a long way in streamlining some processes and, making sure that, Houston, we get down to your all employee meeting. So we get to know your techs and kind of develop more of one culture instead of two separate and distinct cultures. And I think Austin's always going to have its own culture because Austin is its own culture, but sharing those core values and having those same processes and knowing that, Austin is supported by Houston is really valuable. And I think that, you've got the momentum now, which is so awesome to see. Just considering, where you've been from when I've started to where you are now, it's really amazing and fun to watch. So you guys are doing a great job there.
Absolutely.
When we were trying to get to 5 million, to 12 million, to 20, 25 million, we were not going to be able to do that without personnel. And we had to, as much as we want to talk about hiring the right man, the right person for the job, we had to get people in. We didn't have the luxury of being overly selective. We're at a point now, and I think that's tied to the success as well, is that we are in a position now to where we have been able to be much more selective. People didn't know who we were 5 years ago. So we were just trying to get as many people as we could to get to those numbers and have the ability to do it with the personnel. We're able to actually hire people for that culture. We spend time in interviews, not just talking about their performance and their mechanical aptitude, things like that. We're actually trying to talk to these people and see who they are. So that way we're not injecting somebody who is not good for the culture into it. And I think that's lent itself to our success in a great part as well, is that we've streamlined some things, we've worked on the processes, we've created a better relationship with Houston, but we've also been much more selective about who we're bringing in house now.
Yeah, I think again, that just speaks to the maturity of the location and the maturity of the team there, and it was right early on. It was just like rapid fire, like, hey, just hire. They got a pulse and they got a license and they can, let's go. And then it got, okay, yeah, we probably should not have hired those three guys because they only lasted a week. But, we learned a lot. And, I had the unique position to see things. I was, kind of, while Alan was, leading the group in Austin, the early transition over the first few years, I was kind of behind the scenes and, at every part of it, and like, hey, Alan, I don't know about this. I think we're straying away from this a little too much. We're going away from over here. So I was there every step, but I just wasn't necessarily involved in all of the day to day of it. But I was involved in everything that was strategically going on because it did impact Houston. But I will tell you guys, we've made a lot of errors along the way, and I think we've also corrected a lot of things on the way. And I'll be the first one to tell you that sometimes we overcorrected. Hey, and a perfect example is, last year, beginning of the year, we brought dispatch out of Austin and we said, hey, we want to centralize dispatch into Houston and have everything out of, and I still remember the conversations even, with you and others, and you guys were kind of really against it. And, we did it and it didn't work, right? So the way we wanted it to work. So we pivoted and we changed it late, but we have dispatch back in there, right? So I guess where I'm going is, and this is just for everybody, and that's just true for Abacus and, hopefully all the leaders that here is that we're going to try some things. We're going to, we're going to go a different. We're going to try to standardize some things. Sometimes we go a little too far, and maybe we just got to self-correct and get it back to where it should be. And I think Austin is Austin, and Houston is Houston, but the brand is the brand, right? And I think one of the things that I'm going to talk about a lot over the next few weeks and quarter is is our reputation is our standard. That is who we are. That is what we are, and that trumps everything. And we can't ever put anything above our reputation, because then we start tarnishing the brand, which then hurts us long term, right? So we can run different plays that are unique to Austin, that are unique to Houston, but the core of who we are and what we are is the culture of the people. And I think that's the one thing today I feel stronger about. We're a lot closer in terms of what I see in Houston and what I see in Austin in terms of the technicians, the office staff, how we operate, how we do things. And it's becoming that standardized culture. We got to keep things uniquely Austin, and Austin is Austin, and Houston is Houston. And we can't make them be different than what they are. They're two different markets, but they're one brand. And I think that's the big takeaway for everybody here. So, all right. So my last question to close it up, and I want each of you to finish this sentence. Excuse me, finish this sentence. So trust between two markets means, and then you guys finish that sentence. So I don't know who wants to go first.
Trust between two markets, I think, is going to come down to believing that everybody has the best interest of the other party in mind. Nobody's trying to accomplish anything at the expense of the other. Houston's not trying to accomplish things at the expense of Austin. Austin's not trying to become independent and do things separately from what the Houston, not just the Houston market, but again, to your point, the Abacus brand is doing. That we are actively supporting each other's movements and also offering suggestions, feeling free and able to offer suggestions and ideas and thoughts and be taken seriously for it.
Excellent.
I think trust between two markets is building trust between the locations, building trust with each other, and that's through being accountable and following through on what we say we're going to do, and being okay with pivoting if we need to. I mean, I think it's focusing on our 3 wins and supporting each other to get there.
Yeah, and I'll add to this. To me, and I think all of you guys are absolutely right. I mean, Lucy, you said respect, and Vic, it's belief, and accountability. Melissa, you talked about, and within our 3-win cult. So for me, it's trust between two markets means going through the good times and the bad times together, and holding it together, and working and knowing in each other, that are having the faith with each other that, hey, we're going to make it through this, right? We're going to this. I know it looks grim, and it's looked grim for the last, I'm going to say 11 previous months, other than the last couple of months. It was looking a little rough there, and we rebuilt it from technician by technician and meeting by meeting, and I just got to thank you guys for buying in and believing in what we were trying to do here. And it's like I told you guys, it's just going up that hill one step at a time and pushing that big momentum ball through, up, and now you guys are catching it. And the most important thing is to be there to celebrate when you got the wins, and you're starting to catch those wins. And now it's fun. Now it's like, oh man, how do we continue to do that? And what do we need to do here? And well, let's get this going, and let's now the business. It really does. But we'll, as we're wrapping up the month of June, and we'll be able to see financially how did we end up and everything else. But I believe firmly, hey, good things, so much good things are ahead, that you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think the going through those tough times makes you better, right? It's getting up and working with each other and leaning in, and Vic, you coming to Houston and building relationships with people, and Lucy, you're always willing to help and do whatever you need to do, and Melissa going out there and having a presence out. It's done by committee. Everybody. I mean, I think there's somebody in Houston probably there every single week. I got to look at the calendar, but I think somebody's in Houston or in Austin every single week. Yeah. I know Steven's out there this week. And so there's somebody out, and that's good, because it keeps a constant rotation and perspective of what's happening, both good and bad, from everything. So with that, guys, I don't have anything else. I appreciate everything. And it was fun kind of putting this together with you guys, and kind of getting learning a little bit more about you guys, and learning more about how the trust between the two markets, and kind of sharing with everyone kind of the journey in Austin. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.